Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really honored and excited to talk. You know, we are definitely in turbulent times, and a lot of talk is brought on about finances and, stress and homeschooling and a million things. And one thing that hasn't really been talked a whole lot about is relationships and what might be going on the home front. I will tell you that I have been with my husband now 34 years. Our 29th wedding anniversary is coming up on May 4th. And we've been through some rough times, like many. And for a lot of people, they're dealing with all of the craziness that's going on in the world, and they're trying to find their way. And maybe you're even spending more time with your significant other or spouse than you ever have, right? And that might even be getting a little bit rough out there. I've heard lots of comments about if we survive this, will marriages survive? There'll be either more divorces or more babies coming up, one of the two, I don't know. But I wanted to talk a little bit about my story that hopefully can inspire and influence you to take a good long look at your relationship. As I mentioned, my husband and I have been together for a long time, and we've been through just about every tragedy and crisis that you could possibly imagine, including the death of our son, Jordan, who died when he was 10 years old of a genetic disease. And, everybody has their own way of grieving, and some people grieve certain ways and other ways. There's no right or wrong. It's just different in a lot of ways. And most marriages don't survive the death of a child. And so a combination of a couple things happened. Not only did we lose our child, and we both, again, had different ways of grieving. My husband had shortly before our son passed away also lost his job where he had been for quite a few years. He was an upper level management at a bank, and they were cutting back, and he was one of the top people to go. So the combination of him losing his job and losing his son was a lot, and for both of us, not only personally, but in our relationship. And so when it came to grieving, he pretty much went a little bit more solo. He went into his own space and didn't talk a lot like many times people do. I myself went to work. I just buried my head in the sand and plowed through and went to work. And so a short time after that, we started really looking at our relationship. We were obviously having a very difficult time. This was in the late 99, 2000, trying to sort everything out. We had now been married about 8 years or so, 8 or 9 years, and we also had 2 young children at home. We had Jacob and John, who were, I think, 2 and 3 at the time. And it happened one day. I woke up, I rolled over, and I looked at him and I said, today is the day. Today, we're either going to a counselor or an attorney, one of the two, and you choose. And I don't know how many of you have been in a similar place in your marriage or relationship where you just, in your mind, we're done. You're like, I'm going to move on. I'm going to go find another spouse, or I might just be better off by myself right now, right? But that day, I was done. I was like, today's the day. We need to make a decision one way or another. And luckily, my husband is a smart man, and he made an appointment with a counselor. And for any of you who have been through marriage therapy or marriage counseling, you typically will go to the first appointment, and they will ask you, hey, why are you here? Well, his answer was, because she made me, which obviously that answer did not go over very well. And so we both had this conversation. I said, if you don't want to be here, you don't need to be here, but you can make another decision to go to an attorney. Well, I will tell you that we decided to go back to the second appointment. And at the second appointment, we looked at the counselor, and he basically wanted to know a little bit about our background and our experience and what our families were like. And we came from very different relationships. My husband, Joe, was from an old Spanish family who had been married for many, many years, and he was a late in life child, a surprise, you could say, or a bonus. And so he was basically a only child, really. He had 7 brothers and sisters, but they were all considerably older than him. And myself, I had come from a family of divorce. My mother had been divorced a few times. And it was just very different. I didn't have any very good role models or any paths to follow, right? So we both came from these very diverse backgrounds and trying to figure out what was the best way for us to make our relationship work or figure out what we were going to do. The third appointment, we went back separately so he could talk to us separately and help figure out what we could do. And I went into the appointment and he said, well, it looks like you've done a lot of counseling and therapy. What I want to know is, are you actually done? Are you willing to give it one more shot? And I said, well, I'm not really sure the answer to that, but I'm willing to give it one more shot. And I remember him saying, I would like you to make a list of the things that you love about him. And I said, I've already done that pros and cons list. And right now, pros are way below the cons. I'm not sure I could come up with a list. He said, no, I don't want you to write any of the cons. You probably got that down. What I would like you to do is to make a list of the things that you love about him. And he goes, I'm assuming that you're a little bit competitive, so why don't you put a number on that list? And I said, okay, I'm not sure if I can even come up with one, but tell you what, I'll make it a goal to make it 100. Well, I left that appointment, and I will tell you that it took me several days before I could write down anything. I was so frustrated and chagrined and upset. And after a few days, I actually started to write down a couple things. Like, my husband makes me tea every morning and puts it next to my bed, whether I'm nice to him or not. He is a great dad. He is funny. He's entertaining. Everybody loves Joe. He is always kind. No one has a bad thing to say about him, and he rarely has a bad thing to say about anyone else. He is very inspiring and thoughtful and very considerate. And I just started to make this list. Well, I'll be really honest. I only made it to 45 on the list. I did not make it to 100. But when our wedding anniversary came up that day, I gave that list to him. And I will tell you that it made a huge difference in our relationship. Here's another little secret I will tell you, is that Joe did not really change a thing during that time. He didn't change anything. The only thing that changed was my perspective, my view. You know, it's funny in life because even during times of crisis like this, many times we have a tendency to focus on all the stuff that's going wrong, all the horrible things that are happening, all the bad stuff that's happening. And like Lori was saying earlier in her talk, many of us forget to focus on the good and what is going on. And so I'll tell you that I actually took the time to sit down and take that list, and I laminated it and gave it to him as a gift. And I bring that list out frequently, many times when I'm having a rough day or a rough time. And so I really encourage you to take some time to write down the things that you love about them, because right now, more than ever, relationships are struggling. People are struggling in their relationships. We are dealing with financial crisis, which is one of the number one reasons that many people go through divorce. We're dealing with stress of jobs, maybe job loss. We're trying to deal with children at home and trying to figure out how to homeschool them and how to keep everything going on. And somewhere in there, trying to take care of ourselves. And what is probably getting pushed to the very bottom of your list is your relationship. And so I'll tell you a few ideas that we came up with in our relationship to try to just kind of keep the love alive and keep the spice going. First of all, we made the decision to alternate whose year it was to plan our wedding anniversary. So how many of you have a wedding anniversary coming up or a special day, whatever that is, and that day comes up and you kind of look at each other and you're like, what do you want to do? Oh, I don't know. What do you want to do? Do you want to go out to dinner? Oh, yeah, I guess. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? We've all had that conversation, right? And at the end, you're just like, whatever you want to do, let's just do it. Which now makes your anniversary not a very special occasion, but more of a stressor, right? Or maybe it's a situation where one of you is always responsible for the anniversary. Well, what we decided to do on our 9th anniversary is, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions and comments on this, is we made the decision to alternate whose year it was to plan. So for 1 year, he gets to plan, and 1 year I get to plan. So for our 9th anniversary, we started this. And our 9th anniversary, he did 9 of something every day for 9 days leading up to our anniversary. right? And so then for the 10th, now I had to outdo him because I'm competitive. So now I did a scavenger hunt. And each year it has become really fun. It's become something we look forward to. It's become something that we get excited about. Now I will tell you, we've had to create a couple rules. And one of those rules is you can include friends in the ideas and suggestions, but you cannot bring them along. Okay. In other words, if you're going away for a weekend or you're going on a vacation or whatever it is, you're not supposed to bring friends. This is time for you. And the other rule is, if it's your turn to plan, it has to be all about them, okay? Meaning that it has to be all about the other person. So if it's your year to plan and you love golf, it cannot be about golfing. It's got to be whatever the other person loves to do. And what I've found is that everyone starts to get excited about their wedding anniversary again and making it something special and something that you can do that becomes a little more exciting and a little more adventurous, right? And I'll tell you that if you are one who is waiting for the other one to figure it out, I encourage you to be the first, make the first step, really reach out and talk and look at ways that you can be kind to the other person. You know, there was a great quote. Let me see. There's a couple great quotes that I pulled up this morning, but one of them is a strong marriage rarely has two strong people at the same time. It is one or the other who take turns being strong for each other in moments when the other feels weak, right? And so many times we get so focused on what we want the other one to do, but we're not doing the things that we need to do to make that relationship thrive. You know, the sun doesn't sit there and wait for you to say something before the sun shines. It shines on you no matter what, right? And so what are you currently doing in your relationship? And maybe this is not necessarily a marriage. Maybe this is a relationship with friends or people you care about or a work relationship. But for many of us, we get so consumed and tied up with making it all about us. And we forget that it's so important and vitally important that you reach out and do what you can to do things for the other, right? There's always that famous lesson, give more than you take. And sometimes we get into that place where we're like, I've given enough. I've done more than he ever did. It's his turn. I'm going to sit around and wait. And the reality is that the more that you find ways, it's like this kind of, what is that? This like place where you get stuck. And you're both getting stubborn and you're both saying, I'm not going to do anything until he does it. I'm not going to do anything until she does it. I'm going to sit, and you become at a standstill, right? And what you have to remember many times is what is most important, being right or the relationship? Because it's very easy to get caught up in being right. Well, it's his turn. It's her turn. I've done this way too many times. And if you will take the time to sit down and make a list of the things that you love about them, if you will sit down and make a list of the things that you would love to do, what I encourage you to do is you will start to see how that changes the way you think, and it changes the way that you look at your relationship. And so if you're looking at action steps, what is something you could do today, right now, that will change your relationship? It could be something very small. I know finances are tough. My favorite thing are love letters. Have you written a love letter? Have you taken and made a note and put it up, a sticky note somewhere around that they can see? Have you done anything special for them today? Don't wait for them to do something special for you. What is something you can actually do that is special for them? You know, every relationship goes through its challenges, and now we're coming up on 34 years, and I will not say that it has been easy. I will not say that it has been over the moon, fantastic all the time. We have good days and we have bad days. And many times, if you are keeping score of what you do for them, what you will find is that you will score yourself right out of the relationship. And so take some time today. I encourage you to take a couple minutes and make this list And if you want to share it with me, I would love for you to share it with me. If you want to write ideas in the comments of the things that you love about them, I encourage you to do that. I know that I am working on finishing up my book with my very, very good friend, Sean. I know I've been talking about it forever, but we've both committed to getting it done, our book on the 100 Things I Love About You. So if you would like to follow me or pay attention to that, you can follow me on social media. You can always head over to margueritecrespillo.com, where I'll be posting stuff here shortly about what is coming up with it. But today is the day. Don't put this off. Don't wait for them to do something. What can you do today to change the trajectory of your relationship? What is something that you could say or do or interact with, or make a list, or create a love letter? But these are just a few of the things that we have done over the years that have really changed the way our relationship. As I mentioned earlier, I come from a mother who was married many times, and I really wanted, more importantly, to not have that be my path. And not that there's anything wrong, people go through divorces for a variety of reasons. But what I will tell you is that most marriages, in my opinion, can be saved if people took a few minutes to remember why they fell in love to begin with. Why did you fall in love with your husband or spouse or significant other or wife? What was it that you fell in love? You know, I'll wrap this up by telling you my favorite toilet paper analogy of a relationship. When you first meet somebody, and the toilet paper, well, we're short on toilet paper now, is turned the wrong way, right? You go and you go, oh, that's so cute how they turn the toilet paper the wrong way. And after you've been together about a year or so, you try to explain to them why they should do it your way. And you try to do it politely, right? After you've been together about 7 or 8 years, you're like, could you just put the roll on the way I want? It's the only thing I care about, right? And then after you've been together for 10 years or so, you're like, forget it, I'll do it myself. Well, the truth is, there are so many things that you fell in love with in the beginning. And Tony Robbins says it best: if you do what you did in the beginning, there will be no end, right? My husband, who's a comedian, loves to say, he says, when we first got together, she laughed at everything. Now she says, everything's a dang joke to you, right? So I hope that this has been helpful. I would love to hear your stories of what is working or not working in your relationship. Please follow me on social media. Please head on over. I do have a Facebook page called 100 Things I Love About You. I'd love for you to like and follow me over there. Or you can head to my website at margueritecrespillo.com and add your name to my list. I'll be sending stuff out here shortly on the 100 Things I Love About You. But I would love to hear your stories. And thank you so much for allowing me to share my story with you today. Thanks again. All right, Jim, back to you.